Okay, I think we are live now, folks. Wonderful. So to briefly reiterate the class scheduling options that we have, right, our custom schedule, being able to create a recurring schedule based on the day of the week and time, bell schedule option that the district can upload at each individual school site, and teacher can apply that time frame and that period to that particular class. And then thirdly, we have an ad hoc session. So these are instantaneous sessions that start and stop at any time the teacher wishes. They can have them run for certain durations, and that the max allowable hours or time frame for each of these ad hoc sessions can be controlled at the district level as well. And these are nice for teachers who have maybe a little bit more of an inconsistent schedule. There's a lot of A and B days, or kind of funky half day Wednesdays, but every other week, and kind of things like that. And if a teacher just feels that they work best being able to start a session, right, and be able to monitor their students when they're working with them as soon as they log into the platform, coming in here, picking that particular class, setting that class duration, hitting start. Now you're working with your students automatically. So whatever the scheduling preference or what the teacher's particular schedule looks like, between one of these three options, teachers are always able to work with their students.
As like a rollout, this was one of the questions that I had. As a rollout for the first year for our teachers, would the ad hoc make more sense because we're such a big district and there's so many different schedules?
I would say probably until there's a little bit more of a consistent nature. We've seen that the bell schedule and custom schedule be successful for schools and districts using this for the first time, but what we've seen be really successful is teachers getting comfortable with the platform as itself for maybe the first month or so or first semester through the ad hoc feature, right? Understanding, okay, I can start and stop my classes at any time, and then that second semester or that second year, if there's something a little bit more consistent that could be built in terms of the class schedule, that's great. If not, functioning out of the ad hoc scheduling feature is really popular with a lot of our teachers, again, for the exact reason you mentioned. If there's a lot of crazy schedules and things moving around constantly, not having to worry about changing that super frequently, and just being able to start and stop a class session in the platform when you want to, makes everything a lot easier. So let's pop back here. So this is our class homepage.
One question, Michael, if you can
sure.
go back to class settings real quick.
Sure.
There was a question about enrolling students all at once. One way you can do this is at the bottom with an invite code of the class settings there. There's a URL where you can have the students go and enter in their district email address, and then that request comes to you and you can enroll them into an existing class. Now, if you got a kindergarten, first grade, second grade, their typing skills aren't so great, you can manually enroll them by typing in their district email address and adding them that way as well.
But everyone should be rostered through the rostering. Like the teachers should see their schedule, right?
Correct. The way the system
what would be a situation where you might have to?
In this particular case, let's say you have a specials or not specials, let's say a resource teacher, a counselor, where they need to interact with a student. They don't have a roster per se.
Yeah.
So I need to work with Michael, and, this particular person and the teacher have an understanding that on certain days at a certain time, I need to work with Michael. And so what I can do is add Michael, and then I can check them in or take control of them. And now I can interact with Michael.
Another example tends to be like pep rally schedules, when things aren't aligned with what the class schedules that are in the SIS would provide, so that you can put those students into a class quickly.
Mm-hmm. Or if you're a sponsor of an after school activity and you find that using Classroom would be beneficial, drama club, cheerleading, football, whatever, you can add those participants in here and then use Classroom to interact with them.
Sorry about that. I muted myself and forgot to unmute. Excellent, thanks. So hopping back to the home screen here, here are our class controls, right? So this is where a lot of teachers kind of live and breathe in the platform. So from here, right, everything I would do would affect my entire class. So I have the ability to toggle browsing on and off for my students. It's really nice when they're using, when they're maybe doing some creating writing activities and don't necessarily need browsing capabilities at the moment. I can lock and unlock my student screen. I can also send a link to my students that will actually open up in a new tab. So it's really useful if you have a specific website or some content that you're trying to get directly out to them. No longer need to worry about them typing it in correctly or them typing it in at all. Putting a link in here and clicking send will bring them to that website or to that link or that specific piece of content and open it up on a new tab on their devices automatically. And then I can create a series of web rules that actually would apply to all the students. So these web rules are pretty unique, right? So think about the typical classroom experience you may be having, right? All your students are on their devices, and maybe there's an instance where you have an assessment, whether it's a Nearpod assessment or something like that, and you want every student to just be on that singular URL and that singular website, not worry about them maybe trying to cheat or do something like that. Well, I can actually only allow my students to access certain websites at any given time. I can do it in kind of a one-off instance through this custom URL section. So copying and pasting that URL in here and hit apply changes. Now that's the only website my students could go to. Or if I have a list of websites that I know I want my students to only access, the example I always use is I'm a former history teacher myself, and during research paper time, I had a series of really credible websites and places for students to find information. I would have loved to only have them look in those areas and be able to cite those primary and secondary sources there. So keeping all of those websites and URLs in that kind of a list, being able to apply them all at once, really ensures that your students have are only going to be on those specific websites, looking at that content, and do not have the ability to go outside of that in a browsing capability in any way. Alternatively, on the block side of things, this is for more of a free browsing experience, but if there is just some websites or a single website that are troublesome for a teacher, they can block them in their class experience. The one I always use is a YouTube, right? So say YouTube is not blocked at the district level, but a teacher doesn't want YouTube, specifically in their class for, whatever reason. You have the ability to block it in a one-off sense, right? Or create a list with, YouTube and any other particular website that you may find troublesome, and be able to apply all those websites at a single time. And for both the block and allow lists, teachers can create multiple lists with multiple different websites and really get creative in terms of what they're blocking or what they're allowing, depending upon what their lesson looks like, what that day in class looks like, what group of students they're working with. So it really just kind of creates a more effective way for those folks to work alongside their students. And make sure that the browsing experience is appropriate for class, for the situation, and really what the teacher is looking to have those students experience. All right, so moving right along here. So you'll notice that there is a default group. This is where all of our students are held. Primarily when they first come into the platform here, all of our students are located right in this default group. So any changes I make for the entire class would affect all of the students right in this default group or any other group I may create, because with Lightspeed Classroom Management, you can actually create custom groups. So to create a custom group, I would just click that button and now I can create a group and pull any number of students and make any different number of groups for any particular reason. Say Angie and Carter are being particularly troublesome, and I want them to not have access to YouTube or have some more refined browsing capabilities. I can put them in this group. I can lock their screens. I can give them some custom web rules that would only apply to them. Or if they missed an assessment yesterday, I can put them in this group, send them a link to that assessment, only have that assessment be the only website that they could view through an allow list for this group. And now I can work with the remainder of my students in another way. So it really gives teachers the ability to differentiate instruction, based on what any given class day looks like, what that lesson looks like, what the groups of students they're working with looks like. We know that every class, instance is never the same. All 25, 30 students are not always working on the same thing at the same time. So making sure a teacher can create that classroom environment in a digital sense that matches what they're doing in a physical sense is really important to us. And it's something we kind of have as the cornerstone of our platform here. So from this perspective, right, this is our standard list view. Teachers can see their students' names, right? They can see whether they're checked in or not. So students can either be checked in offline or not checked in. Essentially not checked in, as indicated over here, it means that a student's on their device, but they may not be logged in. Or I'm sorry, they're on the device and logged in, but they may not be associated with this particular class at the moment. If that ever occurred, right, it happens from time to time, right? Maybe a student switched classes and they are in a new section of a course, and then our sync hasn't registered that through the student information system yet. I, as the teacher working with that student, have the ability to manually check that student in so that I can monitor their device and make sure that they're working with everything appropriately that they should be. Likewise, in addition to this list view that shows you the URL that a student is currently browsing, we have a screen view just as well. This is our heat map view. It's something that's going to be fading away come the back to school season. But to get to the screen view, right, I would click show all screens down here, and this little pop-up is another holdover from the pandemic era when students and teachers were all on their own Wi-Fi. But from here, now I'm able to see all of my students' screens. And again, come the fall, teachers will have the ability to set the list view or the screen view instantaneously, whatever is best for them. Now I can see all of my students' screens and I can see what they're doing in real time. But if I ever want to get a better look at what a student's doing, I simply can just click on an individual student, and now I can see their entire screen. So this is what Angie is looking at. She may have 7 tabs open, but this is the tab that she is currently viewing. So I can see all of the other open tabs down here. And as a teacher, right, I can actually force close these tabs for that student. So it's really great to redirect them without necessarily bringing attention to them in a negative way. And I can assure you, once a student has had some tabs closed out on them, they'll realize pretty quickly that this is a serious type of monitoring product. So they tend to have a pretty unique behavior correction right there. While looking at a student's screen, I can share their screen with the rest of the class. It's wonderful for those instances where the student is maybe giving a presentation or a project. I can lock and unlock this individual student screen. And then I can also record the student screen for 10 minutes. So in this instance, right, say a student is doing something troublesome, but I need to capture it for administrative purposes or to have a conversation with them or their parents somewhere down the line. I can actually click this button. What would happen is the screen information 5 minutes prior, as well as the screen information 5 minutes after this button is clicked, would be recorded and saved to a recording bank here. That recording would be saved for 90 days, and that's something that this teacher would be able to download and share with administration or that student's parents, again, whatever they feel is appropriate. So it's a nice way to be able to hold students accountable and capture anything that they're doing in an online essence and be able to record it, so to speak. It's also really nice and useful for instances where students may need to meet IEP or 504 expectations. So being able to record that is really nice, and it can be used obviously as examples of students meeting those expectations. Or if a student's doing something really well and you want to have a good conversation for parent-teacher conferences, recording them, solving a problem really effectively or something like that, and having that be a physical example is always a great resource. Likewise, to a student's live screen, we can actually look at their browsing history as well. So I, as a teacher, can see everything that a student's done in my class. I can see the exact URL, the exact website, and timestamp associated with it. Not only that day in class, but I can actually look at my students' browsing history as far back as 90 days during my class period. So if there's ever the question, hey, what did Angie do last week during your class? Well, I can actually go see every URL and every website that she's been on. I have the ability to send my students some messages. We have some pre-created messages here, but I can also send my student a custom message of up to 150 characters. And likewise, I can send my student a link that would open in a new tab, much like like we could do for the entire class, but just for an individual student. Again, a really nice way to get them redirected to content appropriately and effectively. Any questions on the student view side of things?
With the messages, the students can message the teacher back?
So right now, it's only one-way communication through these custom messages. So as a teacher, you can write a custom message. It's one way through the pre-created questions. Need help or are you done? It actually prompts a little yes or no question bubble for the student to respond, and that way the teacher can get some kind of answer. But right now, the custom message is only one-way communication.
I have a question. So if I don't have this open up on my teacher computer, will it still collect all the data, like the websites for the past so many days? Or does it only collect that if I have it up on my screen?
No, it's collecting all the data that the student has on their device. So everything's cloud-based, right, that we're using. So if you're logged in, right, say you're logged on to your district issued device, you'd still have that same experience that you would if you were logged on to your personal device because you dropped your district device or it's getting rebooted or something like that, or you're at home and it's a snow day and you had left your laptop at school. So logging in through classroom.relay.school using your district credentials, right, will put you in this specific platform, right? And for the student side of things, Sarah, remind me again, what devices are your students using?
They're using Chromebooks.
Okay, perfect. So there's actually an extension that would go out on those student devices. So when they're logging in their devices and signing on, it's registering that they're, live essentially, and they're being applied to that appropriate class in the platform here. But on the back end, regardless of all that, right, Lightspeed is collecting all that data and monitoring that student traffic and all that stuff. So wherever you log in from, from your end, you'd still be able to have that same experience for your students.
Now the students don't have to accept, like they are automatically, we can see their stuff.
Correct. Yep. So
okay,
we always like to say, right, when districts implement this type of resource that, it's worth having a conversation with their students and maybe their parents, depending upon, if that's something that you seem as appropriate. But there's the known expectation that, we have a classroom management device. Your students will be, their devices and their activity will be monitored by teachers during class time, right? Just to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, that they're, being safe and working appropriately. There's no need or capability for a student to, uncheck themselves out or something like that, because it's tied to their device and it's tied to their username. So when they're logging in, they are associated with the platform, and whoever is working with them teacher-wise would, have the ability to monitor and support them. It's nice too because there's no extra step for a student to have to sign into something extra or allow something or give them any ability to not give teachers that permission or kind of skirt around the management process. So really user friendly for students. Don't have to do much or at all, really anything. And from a teacher and parent perspective, again, there's that known understanding that during class time, students are on the device. We have this platform. We're monitoring, what they're doing just to make sure that they're on task.
Yeah, and on the device level, so separate from the teacher controls for the IT department in the Google Admin Console, it's important to make sure that you have the ability to log into a personal Google account disabled, as well as the ability to do incognito browsing disabled. And those are probably already in place, but those prevent the student from logging out of the extension and into their own personal account to bypass it. Just want to make sure that's clear.
Looks like Stacy had a question in the chat. Jerry or Jay, can you read it? My I see Stacy's name, but for some reason,
it says, does it monitor? Scroll. Yeah, does it monitor if they're using device at home or on school issued device? Yes, as long as the class is active, even if they're off campus during that class session period, it's collecting that data.
Yeah, so all of our services at Lightspeed run on the device itself. Mm-hmm. And the great thing about that is whether it's at school, whether it's at home, whether it's at Starbucks, it's still going to do the filtering. It's still going to enable the classroom management. Those things will still happen on the device regardless of where it's connecting to the internet.
Now, if there's the instance that after school hours, right, a student is using their device, and if there's concern from parents or teachers or administration that teachers are going to be monitoring their students after hours, there is a way within the platform itself, from the administrator side, to set allowable classroom hours, right? So say after X, 3:30, the platform is inactive, right, and no one can access it from a teacher or student side. But we know there are weather delays, there are snow days, there are hopefully never another pandemic, but we've seen that students can be at home for an extended period of time. So being able to work with them, especially if a student has like a long-term leave of absence and they want to participate during that, class experience during that class time, those devices would work at home. The teacher would be able to monitor them. And again, as a school issue device, they would be treated that way, and classroom management would function on that.
Now, with our situation right now, with our internet being down, and we've had to borrow library hotspots, like the students aren't showing up.
Are they? And they're on their district devices, correct? They're not on personal devices.
They're on their district device, but it shows the kids, but it doesn't show. At least, you know what? Maybe I should put that. Maybe I should wait on that, because I don't know if anyone's tried it actually this past week. I just assumed that it wouldn't work since we were using hotspots.
No, it'll work. It doesn't. It'll work regardless of network connection. Now, there is a setting in the the classroom rules that you would need to check, which is off campus or off network. If that is enabled, it's looking for devices that are on the school network. If that's enabled, you'd want to turn that off, and that pretty much allows connection to a device regardless of what internet service they're using.
Yeah.
Correct.
So if you're in the Lightspeed admin console and you're in classroom rules, the first two settings are the ones that are going to be real important to you. The first one is the ultimate one, enable classroom. If it's not enabled, it's not going to work. The second one is on campus only, which Jerry was just referencing. If it's set for on campus only, then it won't be able to operate off site. So you'd want to turn that off.
Okay, so say that off. So we want to turn off the
second one, which is on campus only, is the one you would turn off so that it would enable it anywhere.
Okay.
And the first one needs to be enabled for any classroom to work. First one's real important.
Okay, first. Okay.
You know what, Sarah, here, I think I can pull it up here and show you what example would look like. So here is the Lightspeed dashboard, right, in the classroom rules section. The enable classroom, toggle here, as well as the campus only option. So you would want this off, right? Because if you want your students to be able to use their devices when they're on hotspots or anything like that, this would enable that. And then enabling classroom is essentially like, the on-off switch for the extension that goes out to all of the students' devices. So ensuring that this is always on is always great. And then making sure that this is off, right? This campus only option allows your students to log in from their hotspots or from their home Wi-Fi or the library, what have you. Now, if there ever comes a point, right, where you'd only want students to be able to access Lightspeed Classroom Management when they're on the campus network, you'd have the ability to engage that. So these are the two tabs Jay was referencing.
And Michael, would you mind scrolling down to the allowed classroom hours as well?
Sure.
And this is important because if you want to have it where it's available anywhere, but you only want to allow it during school hours, you could change the hours that it's available so that a teacher's not creating a class at 6:30 at night, because there's probably not really a reason they need to be doing that, and probably don't want to be doing that either. But this would allow you to restrict what hours that the teacher has access to view the browsing to just school related hours.
And this is admin side, right?
Correct. This is all on the IT end of it, not on the teacher side of it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Of course. We'll pop back
A
here.
dumb question here. If it's a school issued device, why are we stopping monitoring that at any point? They shouldn't be ever pulling something up on a district issued device that can't be monitored.
Well, the monitoring and the filtering is always happening in the background. As far as the teacher ability to view the screens and what's going on. That sometimes is limited to during school hours for privacy reasons. But again, it's a school issued device. If it's issued by the school, you've got every reason to say that everything is monitored at all times.
Okay, thank you.
And Jerry, you worked in instructional technology for several Indiana districts. What was the viewpoint of those districts of how that was handled?
It depended. And even now, we have some districts that say, even on district-owned devices, when they're on school ground property during school hours, we'll enforce. But when they go home, that's no longer our main concern. That parents have to do their job. And they don't disable filtering, but they may make it less restrictive so that the students can use the devices for other things. So they get a little bit more freedom, that they have YouTube access off campus or when class isn't in session. So it really depends. But the vast majority do block internet connectivity to some activity, to some level. Classroom, I'm seeing a little bit higher where they're setting specific class schedules or school hours where that can be used. Unfortunately, we've seen those inappropriate use of technology between students and teachers. So that's one way to limit that.
One real quick question, and they just started mowing my lawn, so I'm sorry.
Okay.
From the list view, can you get to that detailed view?
Yes. Yep. So if
Okay.
I were to go to my list view, and I would say that the list view here, although the screen view is popular, the list view is becoming the more preferred option for teachers, especially if they're very active in the classroom, right? If they're walking around a lot, they're doing that type of thing. Because if I'm a teacher, right, I come back, I sit at my desk, and I can really quickly see the exact URL, exact website a student's on. And if I have any questions about it, I can look at Angie and say, "What's WeVideo?" Okay, click on Angie. Now I can say she's on WeVideo, and can see actually she's visiting a website that was blocked. So you can definitely get that drill down view from this list view as well. And you may have noticed when I clicked into Angie's screen, and maybe Card will have one as well. No, he doesn't. He does. So any of the times that a student's any of these little blue indicators come up, these are what our AI has detected as some unusual browsing activity, and they're actually highlighted up here in this Insights tab. So unusual browsing activity, right, would be something that a student's viewing that would be a game site or gambling or something that definitely would raise flags. Or if there's something filtered at the district level that a student that's blocked, I should say, that a student is repeatedly trying to access, that would indicate some unusual browsing activity as well, and give a notification to the teacher. So really wonderful way for a teacher to not feel like they have to be glued to their screen to monitor their students, is knowing that we have AI on the background, making sure students are more or less, where they're supposed to be. So I'm a teacher, I can walk around the room, right, stop back, and I can say, okay, well, we've had a few instances here of unusual browsing activity. And if I'm curious, I can click into that student and be able to see, what that tab is. It would be highlighted in blue. Again, for demo purposes, our kids are all over the place, and these aren't inherently accurate. But when used in the classroom, it's a great way to get attention to those instances without, again, a teacher needing feeling that they need to sit here and stare constantly all of their students' screens or constantly be watching what URLs the students are browsing. Creating web rules and applying them appropriately, and having our AI run in the background and detect anything that's going on with students really gives teachers a lot of time back to teach, right? And not time spent on monitoring their device or monitoring their students' behavior. In essence, that's a very high level view of the platform. I mean, it is really unique in the sense that it can be as involved or as simplistic as a teacher wants it to be as part of their class experience. Teachers can get extremely creative and create all different types of web rule lists and differentiate instruction and across multiple different groups, and get very involved and creating a classroom experience that's unique to them And again, any changes they make in terms of adding groups or creating groups stay in perpetuity until a change is made, right? So if you have, 4 tables, so to speak, set up, you can set these groups up to be table 1, 2, 3, 4, and now you know where those students are working, what they're doing, and you can sort by those different groups and be able to see what those students are doing and work with them a little bit more effectively. And then on the other side, right, if I'm a teacher, right, and I just want to use this platform to monitor my students when they're taking an assessment, or block certain websites I know will be troublesome during certain times of the year, or during or any other particular reason, I can use it for that purpose as well. So it really is meant to be a tool that fits the needs of every different educator.
I just love the ability to stop everyone's device and just say, okay, all eyes on me. And
yes, exactly. It is it's funny, right? Especially with devices in the classroom, it's sometimes students are glued to them, right? So if I'm able to stop browsing or lock my student's screen, and then a little notification comes across that says, hey, Mr. Fallon has locked your screen for 5 minutes or something like that, all their heads pop up. It's a great way to get eyes on me in the front of the class, great way to capture attention. And it takes a few seconds to do that, right? It's not something that is arduous and really time consuming. So again, the purpose of our platform is to get teachers, more time to teach and less time worrying about what their students are doing on their devices and having to manage everything that comes with that.
Yeah, I was so bummed that we got hacked and the teachers couldn't figure out with it. But and it doesn't look crazy hard, like there's not a ton of options. I don't mean that in a bad way, but
no, and you kind of hit a really key point of our platform, maybe compared to some others. It's simple on purpose, as you all know, and as I know, experiencing this type of using educational tech tools in the classroom. Sometimes it can be really overwhelming if there's so many features and so many options. It's almost like a chore to have to use it. So less is more when it comes to something like this, being effective and purposeful with each of the features and each of the benefits. Now we're always working on new implementations and adding new features when when we realize that they'd be impactful. But to your point, it is very, very user friendly for teachers, very easy for them to get comfortable with. Very hard for them to break anything or do anything detrimental. So fun to play around with and know that nothing bad will happen if they click the wrong button or something like that. And again, made to just get them more time with their students.